good morning, Nigeria, and welcome to another edition of The Agenda, where we dissect the issues shaping our nation's future with clarity and courage. I am Chike Obogu. I'm coming to you live from the heart of Oyo State, and that's Ibadan, the state capital. Today, we dive into a storm brewing across the Atlantic. One storm that is rattling corridors of power in Abuja and even beyond. And that's President Donald Trump's recent threat of military intervention in Nigeria over what he calls an existential threat to Christians, which has sent shockwaves through our body politic. Guns are blazing, he said, pointing fingers at radical Islamists and implicitly at our government's handling of the rising sectarian violence. Meanwhile, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration grapples with accusations of perceived failures in security, in economy, and in governance. And this is fueling domestic unrest. Is this a powder keg of international conflict waiting to explode? Or is it an opportunity for diplomatic resolution? Well, joining me on the program this morning to unpack this through the lens of peace and conflict studies is the erudite Dr. Olushola Ishola of the Department of Peace and Conflict Studies, University of Ibadan. Dr. Olushola Ishola, it's good to have you on the agenda this morning.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
I was looking so radiant.
Thank you.
And how is UI?
Well, UI is good, and we're having our convocation this week.
Okay,
So
interesting.
it's a very lively environment.
For now,
Yes.
until ASU resumes again.
Well, ASU is not on strike.
No, until ASU resumes their negotiation.
Well, yeah, you are right. Until the federal government, gets back to do what they ought to have done with the educational system.
Well, that's another topic for another day. Well, before we delve deeper, let's set the stage running. For our dear listener, in case you want to be part of this program, you can also tweet at us on the handle on the app X at DominionCast. At DominionCast, I'll be able to read out your tweets in the course of the program this morning. All right, Dr. Ishola, in your view, what's the core of Trump's rhetoric here? Is it genuine concern, as it were, as people have posited, or is it a geopolitical restructuring or posturing, or is it something else entirely?
Thank you very much. I will say it's both politics and geopolitics at the same time.
Okay.
You know, when Trump was coming, he made quite a number of promises to the Christian community in the U.S. And, he's trying one way or the other to fulfill those promises by also extending, beyond the space of the U.S. Of course, Christian community is international in nature. It is, all across the globe. Yes, that's on one side. On the other side, I said international geopolitics and, of course, national interest is also embedded. You remember that just a week or few days ago, China also showed some interest in it. And that's where international geopolitics comes into it. Because one way or the other, the events in Nigeria is having repercussions across the whole world. Now, the allegation now is that China is hiding behind all the confusion in Nigeria.
That's an indictment.
I'm just trying to explain how
Please go ahead.
it involves them. China is alleged to be hiding behind all the confusion in Nigeria, terrorism, and the rest of them, to also extract some of our natural resources. And incidentally, the government is not really doing anything. And this, to the US, is against American interest, because the rate at which China's economy is going is challenging US dominance, both in international geopolitics and international economy. So, one way or the other, China is seeing any attempt to stop the confusion in Nigeria, or the killings in Nigeria, as also against their economic interest. Because, it means that they won't use the whole confusion to continue to extract, the natural resources, which they have been doing for quite a while, even though few Chinese have been arrested and the rest. But at the end of the day, they were released because, of course, of the power and influence of China itself. So America is seeing its international influence being challenged by China. And one of the ways it is being challenged is that China is strengthening their economy and dominance, especially in third world countries. And so America thought, okay, if that is China's strategy, why don't we also work out a counter strategy? So in a way, America, well, to my own opinion, is now feeling that, why don't we attempt to stop all of this confusion in Nigeria? In the past, they offered some assistance, but again, under the guise of one or two excuses, they stopped their assistance to Nigeria to counter terrorism, banditry and all of those other confusions across Nigeria, until they now discover that it is even counter the American interest. So, to me, Trump's threats is, one, to jar up American influence, especially across Africa, which is very, very important. And China is reacting because they don't want that. They want to continue their exploitation of the natural resources, And some people have already alleged that anywhere you see people driven away by bandits and by terrorists, you can be sure that there are some natural resources embedded in that environment. And we are a witness to what is happening recently in Kwara State, where a whole community was driven out. Some people were killed at the end of the day. The following week, some miners just came into the communities and began to exploit, the resources under the soil in those communities. So all of these are suspicious and testification to the fact that there are embedded international economic interests in all of this confusion and violence that we are witnessing in our country.
You've made some provocative words, especially
Yes.
indicting China. And majorly, what we have here, the bottom line is resource control from international powers. America, China, economic war, as it were, underneath. And for Tinubu, this lands amidst whispers of economic woes and insecurity fatigue. But let's zoom in on the threat itself, as it were. Trump posted on social media last week, claiming Nigeria is on a U.S. watch list for religious freedom violations. The Reuters and the BBC reports confirm that the United States military planners are now preparing options. How is this risk of intervention? How is the risk, if they intervene, what would be the risk involved for Nigeria, especially now that we are grappling with governance, we're talking politics? What would be the risk for Nigeria as a country, Nigerians themselves?
Well, I think these are two-edged swords, in a way. Nigeria can exploit it for our advantage if we are very, very smart. in the sense that what we have been aspiring for in order to defeat the terrorists, may come easily now that there are international and especially the superpower interest. Because there are certain things that they have denied us, that could have enabled us to defeat the terrorists, which had been troubling us for the past 15 years, or so. So that's on one side. On the second side, it may also affect our political and, I would say, peaceful environment, in the sense that, of course, some political interests are behind all the confusions that we have been witnessing. Not one, not two presidents have confirmed that actually there are some political backers for even the terrorists. Okay. And of course, America and other superpowers have all of these informations, even though several of our presidents in the past didn't have the courage to name names and to announce individuals behind, for example, the Boko Haram. But the superpowers do have their list. And by their position, if they expose such individuals, it can contribute to defeating some of those who are troubling us. That's on another side. On another side is the fact that if they come, there could be confusion. But one thing I know is that America will not come and be striking, for example, those areas that are peaceful. It is all those areas that have been troubled by the terrorists and by other lunatics in our country that this may affect. For example, America cannot come and be bombing Lagos, or put boots on the ground in Ibadan. For what reason? They wouldn't do that. But they can go to the northeast. They can go to certain part of the northwest, north central, because they have all this information. And the latest information that we have is quite similar to what happened in 2020. That currently, one of their citizens, had been kidnapped in Niger Republic, and they are suspecting that such individual could be hidden in Nigeria, just as it happened in 2020. And America came
without Nigerians knowing,
and they extracted and rescued their citizen and left. So that may also happen. But if Nigerian government really wants the assistance from America, they may give us some of the other equipment. But again, it now depends on Nigeria to make use of such equipment to protect our land and to prevent those, who are killing Christians and other kinds of people to stop doing that. We may exploit the current environment to do that. So that's why I said it's in two phases. But one thing you can be sure is that America will not do anything without their interest being there. They must also take care of their interest in whatever situation it is.
Yeah, you mentioned a few places that America could strike if they want to, or if they wanted to, based on the information they have. You mentioned the northeast, north central, northwest, yes, where we have this banditry, insurgency, and the likes. Don't you think about collateral damage too? Because when such things happen, there's also room for collateral damage where both friends and foes go.
Yes, you see, that American strategy is always that as much as possible they want to minimize the collateral damage. Okay. And it could interest you that there is even a serious confusion, even in the circle of the terrorists. Just last night, yesterday, there was a serious fighting between ISWAP and
Boko Haram.
Yeah. And many of them were killed among themselves. Of course, Nigerian army will know this, but they will leave them to, damage themselves to reduce their own work. I believe that's the kind of thing that America could also do, to create confusion among, the enemies and let them, and probably at the end of this, supporting one side and let them destroy themselves in a way. That's a strategy, it's a military strategy, which often works also. Then another one is to find a way of also making sure that they limit the extent to which they will take away the terrorists without letting the communities be affected. That's provided the community themselves do cooperate with them. So that is also a scenario that could happen. They already knew which area is still under the influence of the terrorists, and the bandits, and they already knew the extent of their influences. So to that extent, they could plan their intervention to make sure that they limit those interventions to cover all those areas of the influences of the terrorists and the bandits.
Would you say it's a misguided approach by America, or you want to say it is meddlesome, trying to meddle into the affairs of a sovereign state?
You see, there is one principle, even in the United Nations, principle of the right to protect.
Okay.
RTP. And that principle is most of the time what foreign powers evoke to make their invasions. For example, during the Libyan conflict, you remember?
Yes.
They used the confusion in Libya and the fact that Gaddafi was losing influence because he was actually even killing his own citizens to plan their invasion. And they made sure that they impacted on the enemies of Gaddafi to make sure that they extended the conflict and then zeroed in on Gaddafi until they now took him away. Even though the aftermath of that is
devastating in Libya right now. Libyans are crying.
Yes. But eventually, America could evoke that to invade Nigeria if they want. But I don't see them using that because they have more to lose than to gain. Because it is not the whole of Nigeria that the confusion is prevailing. It is only certain parts, and even it can be restricted to certain communities, which we all know. For the central part of Nigeria, that's where the killing of Christians that they are talking about is restricted to
Plateau State,
Benue, probably part of Taraba. So not even up to 1/10 of Nigeria, in a sense, if we look at it. So it will be very, very difficult to invoke the RTP on the UN.
Yeah, right to protect.
Exactly. But this, I dare say that this is more of an intelligence war. It's more, if you have information for your military, of course, that is the only place they will cover. America even don't need to put the boot on the ground. Nigerian military are willing, and they have all the capacity.
But some have asserted that...
But it's the government in Nigeria that is the problem.
But some have asserted that even in the military, there are some unscrupulous elements.
That is what we are saying.
Who may have betrayed operations.
Those unscrupulous elements must have a backing in the political corridors. And that's where the problems is. Most of our commanders are fantastic individuals. They are patriotic elements. We know most of them. They are not likely to be influenced. So most of the time is the field officers that the political elements influence to limit the war against all those individuals that are troubling these countries. Left to commanders, they are ready to do their work. But when you send individuals to the field and they don't do what they ought to do, or they don't take to instruction, then it becomes a problem. And I think those are the things that we need to take care of if we want to see the end of terrorism and insurgency in this country.
Sometime last week or 2 weeks thereabout, there was this hashtag Hands Off Nigeria that trended on social media, and it had over 500,000 posts on social media. And many have feared that it echoed colonial, it came up with colonial echoes, saying, is there going to be a recolonization, as it were? But Dr. Eshola, from the peace and conflict angle, let's look at it from that lens. Does this threat, in a way, exacerbate internal divisions, especially when it comes to the Christian-Muslim divisions?
No, I don't think, it will do so. Because we have been living in peace. In fact, of Nigeria is a model even to the international community. Look at the Southwest, for example. You can hardly find a family without Christian and Muslims. So, not only certain part of this, but in certain communities. And it is also ingrained in the resource conflict that we have. For example, why is it prevalence between the Fulanis, who are predominantly Muslims, not Hausa?
Yeah, not Hausa.
I say Fulani mainly, and who are predominantly Muslims and cattle breeders, and other communities who are farmers and who are predominantly Christians. So resource conflict is also involved in other part of Nigeria. For example, in the Southwest,
at least to a large
extent.
Yes.
Exactly. So, and that is where the America themselves will be confused, and it will also influence whatever intervention that they want to make. But what I'm saying in essence is that America invade the farm in Benue or whatever, and they cannot invade Lagos. There's no reason to do that.
But Zamfara is a hot spot.
It's a hot spot, and it is because, of course, the natural resources are also, ingrained in the conflict there. Every day, the people are taking gold out of.
Tweet at us on the app X, and the handle is @DominionCast. @DominionCast. We'll be discussing Tinubu's side of the ledger after this break. Stick around. Don't go away. It's the agenda.
Live from the heart of the action. Welcome to the nerve center of Next Level Broadcasting.
This is the OB van, where the studio meets the street.
Equipped with cutting-edge cameras, crystal clear audio, real-time switching, and broadcast control, we don't just capture moments, we deliver the experience live.
Anywhere, anytime, from stadiums to red carpets, breaking news to buzzing festivals, weddings, birthdays, and all sorts of ceremonies. We bring the world to your screen in real time.
It's not just a van, it's a complete mobile production house, a command center, a broadcast beast.
This is more than a broadcast. This is the OB van difference. Live, loud, limitless.
Ready to go live? Like never before. Book the OB van today and take your event to the world. One powerful broadcast at a time.
To book, call 0705 506 1061 or 0916 101 1061. Email marketing@dominion.org.ng or visit our socials on Instagram @Dominion Broadcast.
Dominion Broadcast, your channel of choice.
All right, welcome back from that break. It's still the agenda, and we're discussing some issues here, and it's Trump's threat, Tinubu's perceived failure, a conflict to be resolved. And I have Dr. Shola Olushola from the University of Ibadan here in the studio. So, Dr. Ishola, let's pivot to Abuja. Tinubu has been in office for over 2 years now. And then economic reforms, fuel subsidy removal, Naira floats, promised relief but not delivered. And then we have hardship in the town. Inflation got high at some point. And then we have youth unemployment at 40% according to the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics, or the National Bureau of Statistics. And if you add insecurity to it too, then you see that 2025 has seen more kidnappings than in past years. So, is this a perceived failure? And if you say it's a perceived failure, is it a fair charge? Or is it some media hyperbole, as it were?
Well, to me, I think 2 years is not sufficient enough.
To
Yes,
score this administration?
Yes, because the truth of the matter is that the situation has been terribly bad, even before this administration came in. The only problem that this administration has is that I don't think they have sufficient plan for the consequences of some of the economic reforms that they have been making.
So are you saying there was no plan ab initio?
Yes,
Okay.
to contend with the consequences. For example, I mean, the oil subsidy removal. I don't think the government had any plans to address the consequences, because definitely it will have consequences upon every aspect of our economy, especially things that has to do with the lower income, sector of our population. The government never had any antidote to those pains that, fuel subsidy removal cost on that, part of the population. And of course, the consequence of that again is that there will be more crimes, because the government is not able to alleviate some of the suffering of the other side of the population that are struggling, even though, the middle income have been virtually wiped out in this country. It's either you have or you don't have. But that's not how to run the economy. And, the government has neglected some of their responsibilities in that aspect. And I think that is what has aggravated the problems that we have been having. But I will say that the rest 2 years that this government has is enough also to find solution to all of these problems. Of course, the economic problem will lead to security problems, definitely. But now, I think the government should go back to the drawing table and do something about it. Even between now and the end of next year, they can still do it. Find a way to stimulate the economy to absorb at least some of the unemployed, aspects of our population. I think a year should be enough to do that, so that they can use the last year of this administration to stabilize after they have put some incentive to alleviate some of the suffering, of the public, because it's all about the people. So if you plan any economic stimulation without the people, you are wasting your time. But I dare say that the concentration had been more on the comfort of the elitist, segment of our population than those who are, at the grassroots level. And once the government, is able to stabilize all of these issues, once the economy is stimulated, of course, crime will also recede. Because the implication is that the people who have more job to do, the youth will be more engaged. And so those aspects of the population that commits more crime would have been addressed and reduced in a way. So it's now up to this government. So I still give them the chance of these last 2 years, but they don't have any excuse for the next 2 years.
But the next 2 years will all be about politicking, which this administration started right from the day they were sworn in. This 2 years past, it's been politicking. It got to a point, 2026 seemed to have been edited from the political calendar in Nigeria. Everything from 2025 is get towards 2027. So with all these inadequacies, all these low-hanging fruits that we have so far, do you think, how does this intersect with Trump's jab on Nigeria? That's one. And then do you think external pressure expose these cracks? Or are these external factors bringing about or forcing some reforms, as it were, right now, considering the fact that Mr. President is shopping for ambassadors now based on the jabs of Trump? So how do we intersect these cracks, these low-hanging fruits, with Trump's jab?
Now, two areas here. The first area is, this is a period where we will know the difference between a statesman and a politician in our president. And I dare say, well, for a strategist that it is, I'm imagining that one of the reasons why all of this confusion is happening is that towards 2027, it would have softened the ground for the president. And so, politicking to a large extent must be reduced before the election. And of course, it will be an opportunity for him to also continue to address the problem in the economy, insecurity, and the rest of them. I'm imagining that if I were the president, that would be my strategy, okay? All of this demeaning the PDP, reducing the influence of other parties, is towards making 2027 easier. That's one aspect. Then the second aspect that you mentioned, maybe the influence of Trump.
Yeah, what do you see? Is there an intersection with all these cracks with the jab President Trump has thrown on Nigeria?
Yes, there are intersection to it. You remember that in the first term of Trump, he didn't really finish his mission, especially even in the international environment. Where he would have wanted his influence to reach, because he was cut away after the first term. He wasn't able to do that, and that's what he's now trying to do. But I dare say that Nigeria is having this problem because what we ought to have done earlier, we didn't do. The selection of the ambassador that you refer to, that we are just doing now, all the problems that we are having with America now is because we did not do that at the beginning of, at the resumption of this government. For example, if we had had, an ambassador in Washington, all of this pressure that we are experiencing would have been reduced. It wouldn't have gotten to this extent, because our ambassador should have, taken some steps and making some interventions, even in the Congress, in the U.S., that would have, reduced all of this pressure. And I think the government have realized that. That's why they are making all of this effort that they are doing now. But I say that 2 years is still enough to do whatever.
Considering the fact that Mr. President wants to go for a second term.
For a second term, yes.
Don't you think there will be distractions?
To me, I don't think there will be distraction as such, because our president is an experienced individual, even in the international politics. Remember, he had his own initial headaches and the rest, and he was able to manage it. So I believe this is an opportunity for him to address, the problem in a wholesome manner. Okay, if he's able to appoint good diplomats, they should be able to do certain things that will also alleviate some of the pressure. And they could also go beyond that and exploit the advantages in all of this for the benefit of Nigeria. For example, in terms of getting assistance, whether in terms of intelligence or equipment, or whatever, to be able to address the problem with the bandits, with the terrorists, with the insurgents, and the rest. This could be an opportunity to tell you, say, we have been appealing to you for quite some time. Now you have seen yourself. These are our needs. How can you now assist us? It's an opportunity to do that, because it's not easy to just invade any any
sovereign state.
Yes, sovereign state, just like you said earlier, just like that. So it's an opportunity for us to exploit the opportunities, therein, and also to mobilize other support within the international environment.
Of course, so external pressure expose some of these cracks.
Yes.
And also it should put us on our toes to
Exactly.
force some reforms, especially from this administration.
I agree
well,
with you.
we've got some tweets here from Dr. Niger Area 0012. It says, Chike, Trump is out of line. Nigeria's issues are ours to fix. Tinubu needs to prioritize dialogue over dollars. Do you agree with it?
Yeah, I mean, to a large extent, yes. Yeah, Tinubu also have to employ some diplomacy and tactics, as it is, because Nigeria in the diaspora in America are also powerful. So all the government needs to do is to mobilize their support to also put some pressure on Trump back in their,
in his own abode.
in his own abode.
Well, if we look at the core of today's agenda, it is a conflict. You want to ask, is this a conflict to be resolved? Dr. Ishola, if you apply your expertise right now, as it were, vis-a-vis stages of conflict, escalation of risks, and all that, is this a conflict to be resolved?
Yes, I think so. And it's a conflict to be resolved diplomatically, really, and not, basically on military pedestal. We need military assistance, there's no doubt about it, to defeat the insurgents and the terrorists. And this is a global conflict. It is not restricted to Nigeria alone. The effort that it even took America to eventually, reduce the influence of Al-Qaeda. And they are still, on that conflict, even in the Middle East, in Iran, in Syria, and every aspect. So Nigeria could also exploit on that. But again, it is also an opportunity to address our domestic, problem at that level. Because we say it's a global conflict. Why don't you exploit the opportunity in that global conflict to resolve your own domestic conflicts when it comes to the area of
external invasions?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so you've talked about diplomatic resolution to this. So what are the strategies? What are the resolution strategies, as it were?
Yes, there are many platforms that Nigeria could exploit. And this is an opportunity to now exploit that platform. For example, we have extensive influence on regional platform.
ECOWAS,
AU,
okay,
and even this new emerging global, BRICS, exactly. Yeah. We could exert our interest because America is also wary of the influence of members of BRICS and what they could do if they really unite. Okay, so if Nigeria exploits this opportunity, they can also pass a message to the US that, look, we have other big countries supporting us. By the time you have India, Brazil, Russia, and the rest supporting you, then the extent of your influence is widening. And this is a very veritable diplomatic influence. Yes, tool that you can use.
However, you mentioned the African Union. How formidable is the AU? Because when you look at, after the demise of late Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, you find out that the AU became quiet, to say the least.
Yeah, you see, the problem I dare say with AU is in terms of resources. Okay, not many countries threw resources at AU like Gaddafi and the rest of them did. And Nigeria were doing that at a point in time. But of course, because of the economic problems that Nigeria also do have, that's what has reduced, our influence. In terms of structure, AU don't have problems because I'm familiar with the headquarters in
Addis Ababa.
Countries like China, donated a massive building and the rest. And so in terms
So
of
there's still external influence.
yes,
in the African Union.
exactly.
So the
But
African
it's the
Union is
members.
really not independent.
But you see, members of African unions are also sleeping giants.
Are they
way.
sleeping? They're also stealing from their country instead of bringing these monies to emancipate Africa.
That's why we are saying they are sleeping giants. Because countries like China and the rest are exploiting African
The
resources.
loophole.
The loopholes to exploit us, But also because of domestic problem, majority of African countries are in one conflict or the other. I mean, Congo, Sudan, even Ethiopia itself that is hosting the African Union, they have their problem.
Yeah.
Though those are the distractions that has that has not enabled Africans to stand up to their responsibility and to also unite sufficiently, to exert our influence in the international environment. Unfortunately, Nigeria does not have the resources now, but Nigeria still have the goodwill and the diplomatic influences. If they are able to exert all those goodwill and diplomatic influences, we are going to, impact on all of this external pressure that we are referring to.
Okay, so as we wrap up, Dr. Ishola, let's zoom out. U.S.-Nigeria relations, post-threat, post-Trump threat. Assuming everything is over, diplomatic ties, resolutions have been done. So post-threat, and then how do we maintain this for Africa's peacekeeping? You
see, the situation we are witnessing now in Nigerian American relations is a temporary situation. Even most of the Nigerians who have American visas are not even willing to go presently because they know that it's a passing phase. So whether we resolve these present conflicts or not, after 3 to 4 years, it will pass. And then I dare say the good days will resume between Nigeria and America. If we are able to survive this present phase, and all we need to do is to be patient, and our government should also be responsible. Once our governments are responsible to address domestic problems that we are having, by the time this phase will go, the relationship with America will resume and it will get better.
Well, hopefully it gets better. We've far used our time, and I want to say I've gotten so much profound insights from you, Dr. Shola Ishola. However, I would still want to get you again. We'll talk extensively on some more conflict resolution issues and even the polity of the Nigerian state. It reminds us of threats and preludes, what we discussed today, and now you just made mention that they are temporal. It's not final. It's something that is resolvable if we have the right will and the wherewithal to fixing this. You also mentioned the issue of the African Union. I just hope the AU will not sleep again.
They wake up.
Thank you, Dr. Olushola Ishola, for featuring on the agenda today.
My pleasure.
All right, Dr. Olushola Ishola is from the Department of Conflict and Peace Studies, Peace and Conflict Studies, University of Ibadan. Yes, we can keep this conversation going. Let's keep it going, as it were. Visit our website at www.dominion.org.ng. I am Chike Ubogu. God bless Nigeria.